Today we're checking out this front CV axle shaft for the 2012 to 2020 Ram 1500s. If your truck has started to click on the turns, vibrate under load, or you've just got a torn CV boot that's been throwing grease everywhere, this is a direct fit replacement to get your axle feeling smooth and tight again, so it's definitely worth checking out. This axle is designed as a high-quality replacement to restore smooth, efficient power transfer from the front differential to the wheels. It's built to match the length and the spline count of your factory shaft, so it plugs right into the hub and the front diff without any weird play or guesswork. Because it's made specifically for the Ram 1500, the fit is going to be straightforward and the install is going to be simple, and if you stick with me, we'll show you that install here in a minute. Day to day, this is going to give you quieter operation overall, less vibration through the steering wheel, and the confidence that you're not running on a worn or noisy stock part that's on its way out. When it comes to the construction on this, you're getting a pre-assembled CV axle with durable, heat-treated internal components for added strength and a long life. The CV joints come already packed with grease and sealed under the fresh boots, so you're not building anything and you're just swapping the whole thing in and out for an easy install. Now, as far as the pricing goes on this, it is coming in right in that mid $200 price range. That is a solid value for replacing the whole assembly with a unit that's ready to install right out of the box. And speaking of the install process on this one, this is going to get rated just a 1 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter, and you can have this done in 1 hour of your time if everything goes really smooth. So now let's head on out to the shop and we're going to give you a detailed walkthrough of exactly how this install process goes.
All right, for this install you need a hammer, a pry bar, a 1/2 inch ratchet or breaker bar, a 21 mil wrench, a clip removal tool, a 1/2 inch impact, an 18 millimeter socket, various 21 millimeter sockets, and a caliper hanger tool. Not shown on video, a set of jack stands, and a floor jack. Today we're going to be installing a front CV axle on our Ram. Let's get started. All right, to start off, we're going to remove the upper control arm bolt. We're just going to back that off a couple threads just to hold it in the knuckle so we can stay in place. Once we break that loose, we can continue loosening it with our 21 mil ratcheting wrench. All right, now that we have the threads at this point, we're going to hit it with a hammer so we can get the tension off of the control arm. All right, now we're going to remove our brake assembly. We're going to start off by removing the caliper bracket bolt down here and the one on top so we can have more maneuverability with our knuckle. Once we get that loosened, we can move on to the top one and loosen that with our 21 mil wrench. All right, we switched to a ratchet with a 21 mil socket on there to make it a little bit easier to get the top bolt. And now we can remove the bottom bolt. All right, now that we have both bolts out, we can use a caliper hanger and hang this off to the side. Now that we have the caliper out of the way, we can finish removing our bolt. We're going to want to push up on this so we can get the knuckle out. All right, to give us some extra room with this wheel speed sensor, we're going to remove this clip right here. All right, now we can remove our axle nut on here with our 35 millimeter axle nut socket. To give us a little bit more room, we're going to remove the tie rod. We have our 21 mil impact right here. All right, now we're going to use our hammer and tap on the outside of the knuckle to get this free. Now we can push through on our axle and pull it out the back end of the knuckle. Now we're going to pry on our axle just to pop it out of the socket. All right, now that we have the axle popped out, we can remove the sway bar end link to get some more room. We have our 18 mil socket on here. Now that we have the end link loose, we're going to pry up on the sway bar end link just a little bit so we can get the axle out of the way. All right, we realize that the end link is in a bit our way, so we're just going to remove the end link completely. We're going to remove the top one with our 18 mil socket. Now we can install our new axle. Line up on our splines. Should be able just to give it a push and it'll slide in. Now we can install our end link. Attach our bolts and our lower bolt. We can use our 18mm socket to tighten this down. Once you have both your bolts tightened down on your end link, you want to come back and torque that down to spec. Now we can push our axle back into the hub. All right, now we're going to put our axle nut on temporarily so we can hold it in place. To get the knuckle back onto the upper control arm, we're actually going to push it forward. And using a pry bar at the same time, press down. And at this point, we can hold that in place and put the nut back on. And now we can reattach our speed sensor clip back to the upper control arm. Now we can tighten up the bolt to our upper control arm. If your upper control arm is spinning inside of the hub, we can attach a pair of vice grips to hold it down. Now to get some tension on the upper control arm, we're going to use a pry bar and press down. Now we can tighten up our bolt. All right, once you get that tightened down, you can come back and torque that down to spec. Now we can install back our caliper. Just let that sit there and we'll get the bolts in. All right, now we can get our caliper lined up, install our bolts. And now we can tighten this down with our 21mm socket. All right, once you have these tightened up, you can torque these down to factory spec. Now with our axle nut still temporarily in place, we can tighten that down and use our 35mm axle socket to tighten it all the way. Now we can install the bolt on our tie rod. Using our 21, we're going to tighten this down. All right, now that we have everything tightened down, we're going to go back and make sure everything's torqued down to spec. And you want to repeat for the other side. All right, that wraps up our install for a front CV axle shaft for 12 to 20 Ram 1500. Just remember, for everything Ram related, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.